Hear me? Yes, you can. Hi. I'm just going to start off, if it's OK, by asking you to do a quick self-audit. So if you have a look at yourself and how you're sitting, like, do you have your arms crossed? Are you sitting forward? Are you making eye contact with me? You are. Brilliant. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later on, but your body posture is really, really important when it comes to connecting and communicating, so I'll come back to that in a little bit. Next thing I'm going to ask you to do, and I'm sorry for it, but it's technically for my benefit, I want everyone to stand up for a second. Okay, awesome. And we're going to do, a lot of you will be familiar with power poses. So we're going to do a power pose because it's going to make me feel better. But hopefully, if you went out for too long last night, you're feeling a bit hungover, this is going to make you feel awesome. So I want you to stick your hands up in the air. Yeah, nice. Okay, raise your chins. Okay, and take about 5 deep, deep breaths. So breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. And one last time, breathe in and out. Okay, take a seat, guys. Thank you. So what you've done, apart from create an amazing photo opportunity, is you have hacked your brain chemically. You have taken your testosterone levels and you've raised them. Technically, to do it properly, you have to do it for between 2 and 5 minutes. But what it does is it raises your testosterone levels and lowers your cortisol levels, which is the stress-inducing hormone. So I'm feeling a little bit less nervous now. Thanks so much. That was up to you guys, so cheers. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about me and about what I've been doing for the last while and why connecting and communication is so important to me. Okay, cool. Oh, sorry. Oh. I love it when this happens. A little failure goes a long way. Sorry, 2 seconds. Yeah. Should we do this standing up thing again? I could do more stuff with you, but I'm not that cruel. It's terrible. Okay, so looking at your body language really quickly, I can go back to that right now. A lot of you are either distracted because you're working, bad, naughty behavior. Some of you are worried. You're displaying really clear signals of distraction. And I'm going to tell you how to identify that later on, because it's a really fun thing to do. And once you learn to read people, you learn to communicate a lot better yourself. Yes, okay, we're back in the room. We're back in the room. So my name's Angie Maguire. That was an incredible introduction. It was quite overwhelming because I do a bunch of stuff, but I just facilitate a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of awesome people who actually make my life really easy and straightforward and really happy too. So that's okay. Oh, sorry. Thanks. You can tell this is a non-technical talk, right? Okay, so these are some of the things I do. Ladies Who Code is a network for women developers. We have meetups all across the world, and I founded it in 2011. And it's amazing. In terms of communications, given me lots of confidence to communicate. I would not have been able to do this if I hadn't been able to practice at Ladies Who Code. And yeah, it's been awesome. Soledad, who was on earlier, she's in Ladies Who Code as well, so it was cool to see her here. Bacon is an insane conference that I run on things developers love. Music Tech Meetup, exactly what it says in the tin. We get the music industry and the tech industry in a room, and everyone fights and goes, no, you're wrong, and then beautiful things happen. And Apps for Good is a charity that works with school children to teach them how to design web apps. If any of you have free time, look them up. They're always looking for experts and volunteers, and it's really rewarding because kids, unlike adults, are really honest. Kids are great communicators because they will tell you how it is. They will be like, yeah, you're an expert, but you're wrong. I mean, no, that's ridiculous. And you're like, all right, fine. But you learn a lot from kids because they are fabulous communicators. It's when we become adults and we suddenly have politics and conflict in our lives that actually we start becoming bad communicators because we shut off. Okay, so what kind of communicator am I? Well, I'm a self-deprecating communicator, which sounds weird, but my way of connecting to people is by putting myself down or doing something silly. This is an example of this. This year for Bacon Conference, I said if we sold out, I would wear that beautiful bathing suit for the duration of the weekend. We didn't quite sell out, but we almost did, so I decided to do it anyway. It was awesome. It started conversations between other people who were like, who is that crazy woman walking about in a bacon costume? And between me and other people, they'd be like, that's awesome. Like, why are you doing that? So yeah, find your style of communication. It's really important because once you identify how you communicate, it makes a huge impact on how you connect. If you can say, okay, I'm a really confident communicator, then, you know, if you meet someone who isn't confident, it's important to kind of read that and step back a little bit and be like, okay, well, how do we meet on a level? Because people mirror each other. And if you're like overbearing, which I am sometimes, unfortunately, then people are going to shy away from that. Okay. So why do I give a shit about communicating and connecting? Like, we could all go, yeah, I've got lots of friends already, I don't want any more. Like, why is this important? Well, scientific studies show that actually it makes you happier and you live longer. We're told all the time that we should eat 5 a day, we should go running. You know what? I'm going to tell you that it is just as important to make deep social connections because, like, if you not having those is as bad as having high blood pressure, it's as bad as smoking. Like, it really does matter. It has psychological effects, physical effects, and emotional effects that are not charted as well as they should be. So you're getting like a sneaky preview of like, it'll be the next big thing. Forget drinking kale juice and stuff. It's going to be like, be happier, make more friends, make deeper connections. So, you know, we're ahead of the curve here today. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we become better communicators? Well, a big part of that is practice. I've been practicing for years, so I was head of communications at Mint until yesterday. It's fine, I wasn't fired. I'll tell you about it in a minute. But one of the things that I was brought in to do was, my job title was the ambassador on my contract. And they wanted me to connect to different digital agencies, different companies. And how did I do that? I totally messed it up at the start. I didn't know a lot about tech, so I'd go in and I'd be like, hi guys! And everyone would be like, well, she doesn't have a clue. So it took practice, and it took understanding the kind of dialogue that we use in the tech industry, and it took understanding how people worked. And yeah, it's been great, and it's been an adventure. So effective communication. I'm going to give you a really short guide, and then I'm going to give you some tips on how to become much better at communicating. And then we're going to do some really fun stuff with FBI-style reading. I might get some volunteers up, and no, I won't do that. It's terrible. Okay, so one thing that isn't really commonly known is that only 45% of communication is verbal. A lot of you today will be listening to the fact that maybe at the start my voice tremored. The fact that I'm Scottish is always something. They always say Scottish people are more trustworthy. That's why they use insurance adverts. But vocal tone is incredibly important. How your volume, your speed, I speak too fast, that's my big problem. But your volume and your speed, or not your volume, your speed, sorry. Your volume and your tone is really important. 55% non-verbal. Nobody in school goes, yeah, so I really liked your talk, but your non-verbal signals, not so great. We're never taught that non-verbal communication is key to so many things, like job interviews. The first thing they're doing is looking at your non-verbal communication. Negotiations, non-verbal communication. Have we got any poker players in the room? Okay, non-verbal communication. If someone's bluffing, you have to be able to read them. Really important. For doctors are now receiving some training in nonverbal communication because patients lie. They come in and they say, oh, no, I don't smoke. And they're like, well, you do because you've just told me by your body language that you do. So, no, it's really interesting. Okay, anyone know this? Okay, the King's Speech. So this is about verbal communication. Verbal communication can be mastered through training. All great orators are trained. That's it. Practice, stand in front of a mirror, easy peasy. This kind of communication is difficult to master for two reasons. One, most of it's instinctive. And the second part is learned behaviors are difficult to reverse. So we all know who this is. I don't know if it was the best slide to put up today, but this particular gesture is really, really important in nonverbal communication, and it's called the pride gesture. And there's been an amazing study done on pride and shame gestures. And pride gestures are just what we did at the beginning there. You stick your hands up, you stick your chin up. Now, there was a study conducted by a couple of folks from Stanford, and they looked at athletes from the 2008 Olympics. And they looked at sighted athletes, non-sight or blind athletes, and congenitally blind athletes. And they looked at what happened when they won or they lost. So when people won, right across the board, right across, it didn't matter gender, what culture you were from, everybody did something similar. They all stuck their hands up in the air. Even if you'd never seen anyone do that your whole life, you were born blind, you still stuck your hands up in the air and you raised your chin. The same is true for the opposite. If you lost, you curled up or you put your hands on your head. I was going to use a picture of Portugal losing. I didn't want to do that, so I took that one out. Sorry, guys. Okay, so how do you improve your communication skills in a few easy steps? Well, I use the mnemonic ramper. Reactions. Learn to control your reactions. Because they're instinctive, if we don't like something, we'll be really obvious about it. So learn to gauge, to audit, and then control your reactions. Audit yourself. If you're in a room and maybe you've got an important meeting, or even in personal situations, say you're on a date, if you're slumped there, and you're like, yeah, your life's so interesting. Yeah, it's great. There's ways of changing that. And actually, the more you do it, it becomes natural. You relearn that type of behavior. Your messages should be positive. You need to reconstruct your messages sometimes. It's really easy to get, angry, especially in the industry that we work in. Twitter is my favorite example of this. Like, if someone gives you shit on Twitter, you're right back on there being like, oh, no, you didn't. No. And it's important to stop for a second and say, wait, what is my message? Because once you put it out there, you can't take it back. Positivity, obviously. Empathy. Empathy is something that if everybody in the world could just have a little bit more of it, it would be a much better place. And it's going to be important. I'll talk about that in a second. And reading others. Okay, the fun bit. Reading tells an FBI-inspired guide. So there's a great guy called Frank Pizarro, and he's a former FBI agent, and he now trains professional poker players. The best use of his ninja skills, I'm not quite sure, but he has a really fantastic book if you're interested in this. And these are just a couple of things you should look for when trying to read tells. The lip purse. So if someone purses their lips, it means they're troubled. So if you find yourself in a situation, and it can also mean that they have a very negative reaction to something. So say you're going through a contract negotiation, maybe you're working with a client, and you give them something. If they purse their lips at some point, you have to find out what point they purse their lips at, because they don't like what's happening. And then you can go back and be like, oh, well, we could change this slightly. But pursing lips is a sign of being troubled. Eye blocking. I know, what a guy. Eye blocking is a really important one because it has two functions. One is that the person is trying to shut off. They don't want to see what's happening, so they're trying to disassociate. The other one, and this is horrible, and I kind of don't want to tell you this because you'll start to get paranoid, but it can tell you if someone likes you or not. So if you walk into a room and people raise their eyebrows, generally that's a very positive reaction. They're saying, what a guy, what a lady, best pals for life. If you walk in and someone, they do this, so they squint. Squinting is a sign that someone is displeased with you, or there's some kind of, there's tension there. So if someone keeps squinting at you, then, that might be a sign that you need to, do a bit more work on them. Okay, facial touching. This picture was absolutely all over the press because behavioralists and body language experts were like, we cannot believe she gave that away. That is such a tell. And what they were watching was the raid on Osama bin Laden's compound. And it was kind of supposed to be a behind the scenes, and it was supposed to humanize the US government and say, this is what's happening and everything. And Hillary Clinton did something really interesting. She touched her face, which is a way of kind of trying to relieve stress. So human beings do this when there's a deep surge of emotion. So it can be real upset, or you're really shocked by something. You will generally touch your face because it's like a comfort thing. It's like a kind of instinctive way of getting rid of all of that. So everyone was like, oh, okay, something really, really bad went. They were watching something really, really bad because obviously no one could see what they were observing. So that was really interesting. This is my favorite one. How to tell when people are lying. OK, first of all, do not take this as verbatim, because lying is often about context. So you can't run away with this and be like, Angie told me that means that you're lying, because I don't want to destroy relationships or friendships or anything. But there are certain things that you can do to tell if people are maybe being a bit dishonest or they're bending the truth. OK, so the first of these is, well, does anyone have any idea what someone would do if they're lying? Shout out. Look up. OK, so that's interesting because it's not true. And everybody thinks it's true. Everyone's like, oh, they look away or they look down or they look up. They don't. When people lie, they gaze at you because they think if they look away, it makes them look dishonest. It's crazy psychology, but actually there's like 40 years worth of studies saying that people will gaze at you or try and hold your gaze if they're lying. Then, if you couple that with a higher voice, people tend to talk higher when they're lying. So I definitely came to the leaving drinks for the entire night last night. You will raise your voice and you will speed up. So yeah, that's another tell. Yeah, what's the other? Sorry, completely forgotten what the first one is. Yeah, there's quite a few, but context is really important in that. So yeah, gaze. 5 minutes. Okay, the gaze is important, but my favorite one is the non-verbal verbal clash. So if someone says something to you and you think they might be lying, look at their body language, because we are the worst people at giving ourselves away. So this guy, Pizarro, said that he was often called in when there was like big investigations with the FBI, and they couldn't crack the guy, and they had a suspicion, but alibis matched up and stuff. And he said 9 out of 10 times it was their verbal, non-verbal that clashed, and he knew that was their guy, and they just kind of pushed on them. And there was one incident they talked about where there had been a murder, and the guy had said, okay, everything checked out for him. He seemed legitimate. He was a fabulous verbal liar. But he said, okay, so yeah, when that was fine. So I walked left up the road to go home. And he was like, wait a minute. That's right. And that's where the murder scene was. This is our guy. And yeah, they eventually cracked him. So it's crazy. We give ourselves away. If you want to not make that mistake, I don't think you should ever lie, obviously, because lying is bad and everything. But if you do want to lie, that's one thing that you should check. Check your nonverbal behavior and how you can change it. Cool. So why should we be better communicators? And in turn, then make deeper social connections? Well, unexpected outcomes. For me, it's what I was saying earlier. So I haven't been fired from my job. But today is the first day that I'm CEO of my own company. And that is off the back of the deep social connections I've made through building different communities and communicating well with people, and people communicating well with me and saying, you know what, you're not an imposter. You shouldn't be scared. You've got lots of people here to support you, so just go for it. So unexpected outcomes are awesome. Learning. You learn a lot by communicating with people. In fact, it's more important probably than sitting down and reading tons and tons of text. We learn by doing, but we also learn by communicating and connecting. Sharing. I feel really privileged to be in front of all of you today, to be given this opportunity. And that's only through meeting David Diaz on my birthday this year in Lisbon, where he apparently thought I was quite funny. So yeah, he gave me a call and said, come and chat to this awesome group of people. So yeah, getting to share is a real privilege that comes off the back of connecting. Making awesome new buddies. David Diaz is my awesome new buddy. I hope to make lots of other awesome new buddies today. Yeah, so please come and talk to me if you're interested in learning more as well. Being a Jedi, with connection, with communication, comes great responsibility. And why is that? Well, you guys are at different stages in your careers. Some of you are complete experts. Some of you maybe are studying. But in our industry, it's important to look to the next step, the next generation, those who are coming in. And we have a real responsibility to be open, to communicate properly and effectively, and to start making connections with people. Because there's a guy called David from Thunderbolt.com, and he had this great phrase where he was like, we need to be a Jedi to our Padawans. And I was like, what the hell are they? I'm a Star Trek fan. I'm not really a Star Wars fan. But then I watched it, and I was like, yes, this guy's got it down. That's exactly what we need to do. So please keep that in mind. Like, by improving your own communication skills, by connecting more, you're actually doing incredible things for the next group of people who come into tech. Homework. Everybody loves homework. Okay, maybe don't do it here because it'll be quite creepy if you're all doing it to each other. And you'll be like, hey, I'm softening. What's happening? But yeah, when you go home, when you go back to work, and maybe there's people you find that are a bit more difficult to connect with, use soften. It really does work. Just smile, open posture, forward lean, don't lunge. Oh, not good. Eye contact and nod. The power of a nod is crazy. Like, people, when they feel like you're interested in what they have to say, it really opens them up. It's great. Cool. If you want to know any more about this, then please drop me a tweet or come say hi. I'm going to be around for the rest of the weekend. And I want to say a big thank you to the amazing organizers of LXJS. This has been such a pleasure and a privilege. And I hope the rest of you have a really awesome rest of the weekend. Thank you.